Shalom and welcome to 2 Minutes of Torah. This year is entitled Jewish Philosophy, Shir number 13, Rav Saadya Gaon. And there's a chapter on God. We've been discussing the concept of Dibra, Torah, Hashem, and Adam, that many anthropomorphic terms were related to God. It talks about his hand, his nose, anger, and this Rav Saadya Gaon repeats again and again. Dibra, Torah, Hashem, and Adam. The Torah is certainly written in a way that we can relate to, but we should not chas v'shalom project any physicality onto God. And the Shir will just refer to a couple of points that he makes in the chapter. He asks that based on this principle that we always must assume that God is not physical, and those terms are not literal, so he asks about a few of them. He says, what about the fact that Hashem is always described as dwelling in the heavens? What does that mean? So he writes, this was merely a way of indicating God's greatness and his elevation. Since heaven for us is the highest thing we know of, we look at heaven as a special, holy kind of place. So therefore the Nevi'im associated the heaven with Hashem. But not that he is there, so to speak, more than anywhere. Of course, isn't anywhere. He's not physical. But if we are going to use the concept of Dibra relation Adam to talk about a place of Hashem, it refers to that only because we have those associations. So too with the Beit HaMikdash, it also applies to Hashem, that he dwells in the temple. The purpose of all this was to confer honor upon the place, and for his the Mikdash is a special place. God, so to speak, has his Shekhinah there. And so too, of course, with time. Rav Saadya says the same thing. Hashem is creator of time, so he's certainly not subject to time in any way like we know it. There's a few basic points that he adds into this chapter. He goes on that what about the pasuk Hashem said to Moshe in his dialogue, that Moshe asks, can I see you? And Hashem said, well, you could see my back, you cannot see my front. Well, what does that mean? Once again, as Rav Saadya says, that's referring to a certain creation of God. It would be a very strong light that Hashem created. And the question is, would Moshe be able to see that and withstand it or not? But of course, it's not referring to God himself. A person cannot see God in any way. It's not possible. He's not to be seen. So Rav Saadya consistently goes again and again. And one last point that we'll mention in this year is he writes that God before creation, God after creation, of course, is identical. And he says, his existence after his creation of all the bodies must be exactly as it was before he had created them, without any change or division or concealment or interruption. So the Kabbalists that talk about the concept of tzimtzum, that God contracting himself, that certainly is a concept that must be looked into in a very serious manner. The Rivash already a few hundred years ago warned about watching out for such a concept. You talk about God contracting himself. It's a very delicate concept, to say the least. So Rav Saadya over here is just saying that God is exactly the same as he was before. You can't talk about changes in God. So these are just a few of the points that Rav Saadya Gaon mentions in wrapping up his chapter on God and Dibra Torah Hashem Adam. That's always crucial, that anytime we see bodies projected onto God, a place, a time, we always have in mind the concept of Dibra Torah Hashem Adam. Shalom.